Welcome, dear friends, and let me regale you with a tale of redemption, heroism, and the power of love to heal even the most shattered souls. Enjoy the story.
The Rusty Gates of Redemption. The rusty gates of Illinois State Penitentiary groaned open, and John Doe stepped into the glaring sunlight, squinting as the brightness assaulted his eyes. After 5 long years behind bars, he was free. He inhaled deeply, relishing the taste of freedom, a freedom that had been stripped from him by a tragic accident he never intended to cause. Slinging his meager belongings over his shoulder, John set off down the dusty road. The towering prison walls receded behind him with each step, a reminder of the life he was leaving behind. In the distance, the rumble of a train stirred bittersweet memories of a childhood dream that had been crushed long ago. All he had ever wanted was to be a train conductor, but that dream died the day his mother lost her life in a tragic crash, an accident that also robbed him of his voice. His mind drifted to the fateful day 5 years ago, when he had been driving a truck for a living, a job he could manage despite his inability to speak. He had tried to warn the mechanic about the faulty brakes, frantically scribbling notes, gesturing desperately, but the man had brushed him off. Hours later, John found himself hurtling down the highway in an 18-wheeler, struggling to slow the massive truck as it barreled toward a line of cars. Metal crumpled, glass shattered, and lives were lost. In the courtroom, the mechanic shrugged, claiming John's frantic gestures made no sense. The judge, indifferent, slammed the gavel down and sentenced John to prison for reckless driving. No one cared that he had tried to prevent the tragedy. A cloud of dust jolted John back to the present as a sleek sports car screeched to a halt beside him. The tinted window rolled down, revealing a young woman with heavy makeup. "Hey, handsome, can I borrow your phone? Mine's dead." John shook his head and pointed to his throat, indicating his inability to speak. The woman laughed, dismissive. "Not much of a talker, huh? Your loss." She sped off, leaving him in a cloud of dust. The license plate read S2C. John continued walking along the railroad tracks, the city skyline growing closer. The piercing whistle of a train cut through the air. Up ahead, the sports car was stalled on the tracks. The woman slumped over the steering wheel. Without thinking, John sprinted toward her as the train bore down. The brakes screeched, but it was too late. He reached the car, yanked the door open, and dragged the unconscious woman from the wreckage just as the train slammed into the vehicle. John collapsed in the grass, his muscles aching from the effort. Fiery debris rained down around them, and as he shielded the woman, a piece of metal struck him on the head. Darkness closed in. The last thing he saw was her eyes fluttering open in confusion. Beep, beep, beep. The steady rhythm of a heart monitor pulled John from the depths of unconsciousness. His head throbbed, and his vision was blurry, but he could just make out the woman from the track standing by his hospital bed. Her makeup was gone, replaced by freckles and a look of gratitude. "Oh my God, you're awake," she squealed. "I can't believe you saved my life. The doctor said I could have died." John blinked, still disoriented. He pointed to his throat and shook his head. The woman's eyes widened. "You can't talk?" She introduced herself as Stacy Vanderbilt, and over the next few days, she explained the events leading to her near-fatal accident. Someone had spiked her drink at a club, and as a diabetic, she had passed out behind the wheel. "Don't worry, though," she added with a smirk. "My dad's got connections. Whoever messed with me is going to regret it." True to her word, Stacy's father, Mr. Vanderbilt, arrived soon after, a distinguished man with an air of authority. "You must be the man who saved my daughter's life," he said, shaking John's hand. "I can't thank you enough." As John recovered, Stacy visited him frequently, her bubbly personality a stark contrast to his quiet, contemplative nature. Despite her incessant chatter, John found himself looking forward to her visits, but the shadows of his past still loomed over him. The injustice of his conviction, the loss of his voice, it all weighed heavily on his mind. One afternoon, Mr. Vanderbilt approached John with a serious expression. "I've had my legal team look into your case. It's clear you were wrongfully convicted. We're going to get your name cleared." Weeks passed, and John underwent intensive speech therapy, determined to regain his voice. With Stacy's unwavering support, he made remarkable progress. Their bond deepened, though John couldn't shake the feeling that someone like her would never truly care for someone like him, a former convict, haunted by his past. Then, one fateful day as they strolled through the park, Stacy spotted an ice cream truck and dashed toward it. Out of the corner of his eye, John saw a familiar sports car speeding toward her, Vivian, Stacy's stepmother, behind the wheel. Time slowed as John forced his vocal cords to work, pushing out a guttural cry. "Stacy, no!" She turned just in time for John to shove her out of the car's path, taking the impact himself. Pain exploded through his body as the world faded to black. Beep, beep, beep. John awoke in a hospital bed once more, his body battered and broken. Stacy sat at his side, her tear-streaked face lighting up when she saw his eyes open. "You saved my life again," she whispered. "And you talked." "You talked." John smiled weakly. "Guess I just needed the right motivation." In the end, Vivian was arrested, and her plot to kill Stacy was exposed. Mr. Vanderbilt's legal team cleared John's name, and he received a hefty settlement. Months later, John stood on a beach at sunset, Stacy's hand in his as he dropped to one knee. "Stacy Vanderbilt, you brought me back to life. Will you marry me?" With tears in her eyes, Stacy tackled him in a hug. "Yes, yes, you big dummy." As they embraced, John knew he had finally found his voice and his place in the world.